You're listening to Inklings of Insight.
Hi. So I've got a new book summary for you. It's called The China Study. It's written by T. Colin Campbell and Thomas M. Campbell. It's it's about startling implications for diet, weight loss, and long-term health. More people die because of the way they eat than by tobacco use, accidents, or any other lifestyle or environment factor. So again, we're going to be talking about diet, and we're going to be in large part contrasting the United States with China. So I'm going to start off with a few insights that come directly from the book summary on Blinkist, and then I'm going to go into some research that I actually did on my own to kind of highlight the contrast between the health of China and the United States. And of course, again, this all ties back to diet as one of the primary drivers of our health. So one of the things that the China study found was that rural Chinese women whose consumption of dietary fat averaged 6% of their total caloric intake had a lower risk of developing breast cancer than those with an intake of more than 24%. So people who had a lower caloric intake of dietary fat, there were lower instances of breast cancer in women. Something else that this summary drives home is the importance of a plant-based diet, in particular plant-based proteins. It says that plant-based proteins are healthier because in part they contain more fiber than diets of animal protein. The study found that high fiber diets correlated to lower instances of colon and rectal cancer, as well as lower levels of cholesterol in the blood. Many Chinese people eat mostly plant-based diets. The average Chinese person consumes a healthy 33 grams of fiber daily, compared to an average North American's intake of just 11 grams. This is super, I think, insightful and important. I'm an individual who consumes a lot of protein, and on one of the previous videos, I actually talked about how I wanted to start incorporating more um, more green vegetables. The book was speaking to like superfoods and the importance of certain vegetables on impacting your health in terms of decreasing your cancer risk. And I was talking about introducing more kale into my diet, which is something that I have been doing. But I think it's particularly important that for individuals that are consuming protein, for at the very least, for you to have a variety of protein that you're taking in. I'm not saying that you necessarily have to switch all the way to plant-based. This book seems to be highly recommending that, which again is probably not a bad idea at all. But at the very least, it seems like you would want to diversify your diet in terms of your protein intake, particularly if you are trying to put on muscle mass and you're consuming a lot of protein on a regular basis. So again, one of the things that I wanted to highlight, looking at some of the statistics that were coming through, some of the statistics and insights that were coming through the book summary, I wanted to, on my own, do some comparisons and kind of validate some of the disparities that were being highlighted between the U.S. and China. Like, are we really seeing big differences in terms of the health between these two countries? I was really fascinated by that. So a few things that I noticed which were actually pretty shocking, was that cardiovascular disease is happening at a frequency of about 37% in the United States compared to 21% approximately in China. It's coming from the Nature Review. Um, that's a significant disparity as far as I'm concerned. But some of the other statistics that I found were that the prevalence of diabetes is at 10.5% in the United States compared to 9.4 in China. Not a huge difference percentage wise, but again, still interesting that the United States isn't faring as well as China in terms of diabetes frequency. Chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, or COPD, is at a prevalence of 10.8% in the United States compared to 4.9 in China. So that frequency is twice as high in the United States compared to China. Cancer which we know is a big one. A lot of people probably know somebody that has had cancer, is in remission, or has passed away because of cancer. 42%, 40, actually closer to 43% of people in the United States are affected by cancer in terms of their bodily health, compared to 27.1% in China. And then finally, in terms of this list, the prevalence of mental illness is 20.6% in the United States compared to a 15.8% in China. And there are all types of ramifications that come along with mental illness problems, substance abuse, violent crimes. So, I mean, these statistics can have a major ripple effect on other aspects of our individual health and our health as a society. So some interesting things that are kind of driving the difference in health outcomes that we're seeing in the US versus China is the obesity rate in the United States is much higher than the obesity rate in China. 42% for the US relative to China's 12.5%. And again, when you think about what's happening here, nothing happens in a vacuum, right? So there are a lot of factors that can affect these numbers, socioeconomic things, stress, all kinds of things that could kind of affect the numbers that we're seeing here. But it's still really startling to see the disparity in some of these numbers. Smokers, there are more smokers in the United States than China, evidently, with 14.7% in the United States and 2.8% in China. I don't know why I was surprised by that. But the average Chinese person also engages in 1.5 hours of physical activity per day compared to the 0.8 hours for the average American. So you got to think that there's some type of correlation between the obesity rate and that activity number. So again, all of this stuff is multifaceted, interwoven. These statistics are, there's definitely they're definitely not mutually exclusive, right? A lot of these things have a overlapping effect on one another, I'm sure. But the important thing to highlight here is, again, we started out talking about diet and doing more research in terms of diet. It's interesting. The Chinese diet appears to have less fat, less calories, lower amounts of sugar, and conversely, higher amounts of fruits and vegetables and whole grains than the average American diet. So again, we've talked at length about some of these softer elements of our health, like your personal growth and development, your purpose and meaning. But at the end of the day, if you're not able to maintain your health, your body, which in large part is the primary tool that you have in order to get to where you're going on a spiritual or mental level, you're not going to experience success, right? So when we think about your health and wellness, I'd encourage you to take your diet seriously. I know that there can be we've talked in the past about stress. And the last Blinkist, the last video that I posted, talked in large part about you being able to manage your stress levels. And I know a lot of people are actually comfort eaters. They go to food as almost kind of like a drug, an addiction. I think food can be an addiction. And I say that just to say that, again, these things can have a almost symbiotic relationship, where if you have a bad diet, that can lead to other problems that exacerbate your stress levels. And if you're not properly managing your stress, you could find yourself trying to remedy that with things that are not actually effective in helping you solve your issues. So having a bad diet, some people might find themselves trying to deal with their stress in an unhealthy way that leads them to have a bad diet, and it can just snowball from there. So, and correlation is not necessarily causation, but I would bet, I would bet that if you make some changes to your diet, you're going to see a ripple effect in a lot of different areas, and you'll probably see a lot of different improvements in areas like sleep, stress management, and ability to perform physically if you just make some improvements to your diet. So with that being said, I wish you the best success, and see you next time.